What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to try and show you the easiest way to replace an alternator on a 3rd gen Accord that's a 86 to 89 model Honda Accord. So like I just said, the most common way of doing this is jacking it up, pulling the driver's side CV axle out, and then snaking it out from below. And that is a huge pain to do. If you don't want to do that, another thing I've seen some people do is they take the intake off, and that's just, you don't need to do all that work, guys. You can really make it a lot simpler, but you're going to have to take some stuff off. I actually already replaced the alternator on this car, so I'm kind of making this video after the fact, but if I didn't have to go through this, I wouldn't know what to do. So hopefully I can walk you guys through this super quick. Alright, so breaking this down Barney style, the first thing you're going to want to do is obviously put the handbrake up, put it in park, chalk the rear wheels, and jack the front end up. The best place to jack the front of these cars up that I've found and seems to be pretty accepted is if you look underneath the middle of the car, you should be able to see, I don't know if I can quite get it in the camera view, there's a tow hook right in the middle of the car. That's a safe place to jack your Accord up from. So now that you've jacked it up, you're going to want to put your jack stands usually on the slots for where you jack the car up if you had to change the tire, or if there's a better spot you guys have found, you can do that. Now that you got the car up in the air, you're going to take your driver's side wheel off. This is the only wheel you're going to have to take off. And of course, it goes without saying, but definitely disconnect your battery terminal cables before you do anything when working on anything in the electrical system, especially the alternator. You can just take the ground off, but take both off. It's just better to be safe. All right, so you're only gonna have 3 bolts holding your alternator on these cars. The first one I'm missing, it's the tensioner bolt. And I'm only missing that because I broke it. So the tensioner bolt is gonna go around this first mounting bolt, which mounts from the alternator bracket to the alternator. So what you're going to want to do is take that tensioner bolt off first and slide the belt off, and then you're going to want to try and get that top bolt out loose, but you don't want to take it all the way out. You probably won't have room to take it all the way out anyway. So secondly, mind my rusty rotors. Once this wheel is off, you can, even with the rotor and brakes on, you can get at the bottom mounting bolt for the alternator, like, plenty. You kind of got to angle it in there like this, but I got a 1/4 or a 1/2 inch drive impact socket on there, so there's really plenty of room. Okay, so your belt is off, your alternator's kind of loose. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to disconnect the cable right here that plugs into the back of the alternator. It's probably going to be super stiff because it maybe hasn't been replaced in 30 years. You're going to push in this tab on the back and pull out. There's no twisting or anything like that. You just push it in and pull. So if it feels like it's really stuck, trust me, you just push that tab on top and pull. You don't have to do any funky twisting. It'll come out with enough grunt. The next thing you're going to want to do is take off this coolant line that goes to your intake. This may not be super necessary. I took it off to give me some more hand room, but this is going to want to come off. And again, guys, this really is super simple. Even though there's a few steps, it's really easy to do. You're just going to want to undo this wishbone motor mount up top, just right here, and then you can flip it up. After doing that, you see this coolant line right here that goes from your intake to your motor. You're going to want to take it off right here. Just unhook it, and you should be able to pull it and move it kind of over here by the motor mount, setting up. You're going to leak coolant when you take these lines off, so do your best to get some kind of catch can to catch the coolant that drips out. Okay guys, so at this stage in the game, you're going to have your motor mount undone, you're going to have these lines off, and you're probably thinking that there's enough room to snake the alternator out, and I promise you there's honestly not. My dad helped me do this, so he stood up top and I was down below kind of pushing the alternator up, and he kind of grabbed it as it came out, so that helps. But in order to get it out, the little trick is you're going to take these 2 coolant lines right here, the one up top and the one on bottom, that connect to your heater core off. And it's super easy to do. yours is probably going to have some pretty rusty spring style hose clamps right here. I have just normal ones because they broke when I took them off. And there's going to be one bolt right here. I believe it's a 10 millimeter, and that goes over this line. You're gonna have to take that off as well. So another thing you guys need to be super careful about is you're gonna have some coolant leaking, like I said, out of these ports. You can let it leak until it really stops leaking, but you don't want to get the new alternator wet with coolant. So you could use like a gallon plastic bag when you're putting it in to this area or something to move it over, or you can just be careful with it. I was careful and it was fine. So now that you've unhooked these two coolant lines going to your heater core, you're going to move them off to the side. So with these coolant lines out of the way, this coolant line going to the intake out of the way, and your motor mount out of the way, there is just barely enough room to snake that alternator up while you're laying underneath the car and get it out through here and take it out. I promise you that is the easiest way to go about doing this, and it's the most detailed way I can think of. There may be a couple miscellaneous lines or something like back here you want to move that I forgot about. I installed a Weber 3236 progressive carburetor on mine, so mine no longer has the stock carburetor and air box that is associated with it. If you do have the stock carburetor setup, don't worry. You're just probably going to have to take a bunch of that superficial stuff off, and you might even have to unbolt the carb, but I promise it's not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. It beats the hell out of pulling the CV axle out of one of these. So now that you have your old alternator out, what you're going to want to do is, the easiest way is if you have a friend or someone else to help you. If not, you can really do it by yourself. But you're going to want to set your alternator in through this way along the firewall, how you took it out, and try and get it back here beneath the intake manifold, kind of sitting on this cross brace. Like I said, you can really, if you hold it, you can pretty much snake it back there by yourself. But if you have somebody beneath, you can kind of hand it off and get it right back into that bracket that it needs to go in. So here's where you are definitely going to have to be underneath the car. Now that you got your alternator roughly in this area where it's supposed to be, you can hook it up on bottom, hook it up on top, and you can tighten it down, get your belt back on, put your tensioner bolt through, and that's really going to be all you need to do. Don't forget to hook your battery cables back up. And that's it, guys. That is honestly the easiest way I have found to replace the alternator in this car. If you know a better way, I advise you to leave a comment so that other people know about it who are watching this video, or make a video on your own about how to do it. But yeah, guys, like I said, this is pretty much the easiest way I've found to replace your alternator in a 3Gs Accord. That's that 1986 to 1989 model year with a carburetor. Or like I said, if you do have a fuel-injected model, it's a much easier job because you should be able to snake that right behind the intake. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for you today. If you do like what you've seen, please like, subscribe, and check out the channel. I'm also building a 91 Skyline. That's all for today. See you guys later.